guys, welcome back to Navigating Neva, and I'm your host, Neva Nicole, and I'm here with my co-host, Wes.
Hey everybody.
And today we're diving into a conversation that blends leadership, water safety, and camp culture into the best ways.
Absolutely. And we love a good origin story, Nicole. And there's one thing to be a lifeguard instructor and to teach lifeguarding. It's another thing to do it at the level that our guest has been doing. It's another thing to do it at camp, in open water. And she does more than just check a box. She kind of lives and breathes this. So we're excited to have Shannon. Yes, tell us more.
Hello, yeah. My name is Shannon Kubishik. I'm the director of North Florida Christian Camp, which is in Keystone Heights, Florida. We're a little blip on the map in between Jacksonville and Gainesville, if you know Florida at all. And yeah, we have a waterfront at our lake. So we have like a blob and something called a nautilus. It's basically a giant marshmallow in our water, but we also have our pool. So we do have two different types of water there, two different types of swimming, and we serve all ages, literally from kindergarten and younger all the way up through. We have seniors retreats for our friends who are 55 years and older. So we have the full gamut here.
Like all things aquatics, Nicole. She has
Yes.
like all. It's so crazy. All things aquatics. Sorry, Shannon. It was just too easy.
She lives and breathes your motto.
Right,
That's what it
right.
is.
Yeah.
So you are a lifeguard instructor, a camp director, a chaos coordinator, all
Yes,
wrapped
right
up
there.
in one.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Good thing I'm very tall. I've got broad shoulders. I can wear all those hats.
For sure, definitely. So, do you have a pool?
We have a pool. Our pool is 9.5 feet deep, and we have a diving board. That's kind of what makes our pool special because it's been grandfathered in. So that's something that most of our Florida kids don't typically see. And then, of course, we also have our lakefront.
What's
I
more
would.
popular?
mm,
So honestly, with our really young kids, they love the diving board, they love the pool, but once they hit about middle school, they want the lakefront. Like every Florida kid has access to a pool. They don't necessarily have access to a lake and kayaking and canoes and the blob and all of that stuff. So I think that the lakefront is more popular during the summer.
and let's not skip over the deep end, right? I know you mentioned the term grandfather again for the young audience. That means that something old got to prove to be new. And a
Yeah,
9 foot well with a diving board, not just in Florida, across the country, is something not everybody's used to these days. And then
yeah.
having transitioned that to a beach and to a lakefront, talk to us about kind of that challenge and that bridge and how you've navigated that. See how you did that? Navigated, huh? Well done.
I like it. I like it. Um, yeah, so in some ways, having both makes it a lot easier. Lifeguard instruction and our lifeguarding classes are certainly a ton easier in the pool because I can see what's going on underneath the water. I can give feedback and make changes. Whereas if I was having to do my classes at the lake, that would be a lot tougher to be able to see maybe if they're not getting the victim up with their airway out of the water to see kind of where they're missing that mark. So the pool makes that a lot easier. The pool makes our swim tests a lot easier. We
Oh,
do a
sure.
swim test ahead of each of our camp groups. Most of our camps are a week long. And so on Sunday night, we do a swim test with them. And so it's a lot easier to see if the kids are touching the ground of the pool. Whereas at the lake, we have to rely on them being honest.
Yeah. Which
um,
I'm sure all the kids are.
all the
Totally.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's different challenges to your point of, again, the audience understanding how to bridge the gap, but also use the skills that you know in one area and apply them to the other and know where people might be cheating the system to say, hey, you can't get away with this here. We got to
Yeah.
look out for that just on a swim test challenges there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But that's also the beauty. I know a lot of camp directors. I'm one of the only ones who I know who is lifeguard instructor certified. Um,
Mhm.
uh, Most of our other camps will hire those folks in, and I have been trying to encourage some of our sister camps around the country to either employ someone who gets lifeguard instructor certified or to do it themselves as directors because again, having the unique space where we have both the lakefront and the pool, I'm able to tailor those classes and I'm able to tailor the lessons that we have to our facility where it's not, okay, we're going to learn all this in the pool, but then when you go to waterfront, it's going to be completely different once they get to their job. We're able to do it all during the training, which is a really it's a really fantastic piece.
So let's pause right there. You are the camp director and the lifeguard instructor, but you do all the onboarding and hiring for the
Mm-hmm.
staff that you're training. And then
Mm-hmm.
part of the staff training is you're training the guards that you hire. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And you think that other people should do the same thing. They should train the staff they're hiring. So there's not a disconnect for that safety aspect, is what you're
Yeah,
trying to
that's
get
exactly right.
across.
The safety
Hmm.
aspect is the biggest perk of it, of course, but there's a team building aspect of it
Oh, yeah.
that is second to none.
Hmm.
I mean, so my son is 6'10" and he's like
Um,
270 pounds. The kid is massive. And I always tell
fair.
them at the beginning of the classes, okay, part of what you're going to do is you're going to pull Bryant out of the water with the backboard. And so to watch them work together, and I don't ever make him the victim for the test. Don't worry, I'm not that mean. But to watch them come together and be able to pull him out of the water, if they can pull someone who's 6'10" out, they're going to be able to pull any of our campers out. And so to watch them succeed in that and to work together and to think outside the box, because the Red Cross doesn't train that. They don't train to
Hmm.
get someone out who's like gigantic. They just kind of
Hmm.
touch on, well, maybe you need two people to use the backboard. Well, maybe in his case, we need four.
Sure.
And then we do, I have a part of my training that I call scenarios, and it's everybody's favorite. So we have the whole class comes to the corner of the pool, and then I assign two lifeguards. And then I tell our class what they are. Are they preschoolers? Are they an aerobics class for elderly people? Are they high schoolers who are not going to listen to the rules at all? And they get to go and act out those scenarios. I pick a victim and I tell them what they're supposed to do. Are you supposed to dive in the shallow end and then not surface correctly? Are you supposed to maybe chicken fight and hit each other's heads? Maybe it's a land emergency. And so to watch them come together and have to act those things out together, they just become fast friends.
Yeah.
Because you guys know lifeguard instruction, like I mean, you're touching and you're together and
Uh-huh.
you're close and you have to work together as a team. And so I'm really grateful for that aspect of it, which I don't think we would get the same thing if I was sending them to be trained somewhere else.
Not. Oh, go ahead, Nicole. Yeah.
No, I agree. We do in-service weekly where I am, and I know a facility that doesn't do in-service at all over the summer, and it's night and day just to hear the experience from the two different people that work at the two different locations. And that's just training on a weekly basis. But what she's talking
Yeah.
about is preseason training when you're getting those. And I don't think a lot of management or upper management who doesn't come from an aquatic background, like I don't know if you heard, but before we had our veteran Scott, who had been guarding for 39 years, he talked about it. And that's it's not the brotherhood, but it's the lifeguard togetherness. And you get that in
Yeah.
this onboard training, and that's the whole purpose of it. But it's more than that. It is the culture and it's the safety more. I mean, you need
Yes.
to know how to do spinal if you have a lake and a diving board in 9 feet,
Yes.
because it's the safety of your whole crew every day, even if they were on the deck or in the
Yes.
water.
And
Yes.
the only way
And
to know that
go,
is
no,
to
go
act
ahead.
it out. Sorry. Go. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Please go. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So they act it out, and we act out all of those different scenarios, and they really learn to rely on and trust each other. They trust that if they're the rescuing lifeguard, their other teammates are going to know who's getting the AED and who's calling 911 and who's getting the backboard and all of those kinds of things. And not for nothing, it saves me a ton of money doing my own
Truth.
Sure.
Right.
certifications.
Yeah.
Like that's that's a point that we shouldn't overlook.
For
We
sure.
actually had an emergency. We haven't. Everybody always asks me, right, when we're doing the classes, like, have you ever had to make a rescue? And I have some examples of. We had my first summer that I worked here. We had an adult volunteer. We don't swim test our adult volunteers because we just, kind of make the assumption if you're an adult and you don't know how to swim, you're not going to like jump off the diving board. Um,
Right.
You would think.
you would think, but this one particular volunteer kept watching these kids jump off the diving board and make it to the ladder and be totally fine. And she jumped off, and I mean, it was like we were filming a Red Cross video
Yeah.
on an active victim, and our lifeguard responded immediately, got her to the wall. And so I use those examples, like you never know when
Yeah.
you might need to jump in. And this summer we had a victim where we had to call 911. Praise God, the kid was totally and completely fine. The wind was knocked out of him, which made him unresponsive. Like he was breathing, but he was unresponsive. So like I told you guys, we have this lakefront, and one of our inflatable toys is this giant nautilus. Like it's 16 feet above the water at the highest point, and it's like this giant cube marshmallow. And we I go over our lake rules. I call them our lake how-tos because I just operate
Mm.
under the assumption that people don't have blobs in their backyard. And so that was one of the changes that I made when I became director. First of all, is before, like on Monday, before they go to the lake or before they go to the pool, we all gather together in our auditorium. I use the screens to show pictures, and so I have all of their attention. So I'm not trying to like yell on a megaphone at the pool or something, and go over all of the expectations and the safety rules. So one of the rules of the Nautilus is when you're exiting the Nautilus, whether you're sliding off of it or jumping off of it, everything is feet first and facing forward. So there's no flips, there's no dives, which is of course going to prevent head injuries. Well, this kid was following all of the rules, but a kid at the top, because it's a bouncy thing, so it's a little bit like a trampoline. So a kid at the top fell, knocked into him, pushed him off, and he
Mm.
landed like right here on the water. Well, you guys know, and we learn in training, when you hit the water from a high enough height, it's almost like hitting
Cement.
land.
Yep.
It's a very intense uh, pressure there. And so he got the wind absolutely knocked out of him. And we do require life jackets for all those activities. Again, praise God. So the life jacket is what brought him to the surface. And when our lifeguard was saying, "Hey, are you okay?" he wasn't responding. The wind was knocked out of him. So my
Yep.
lifeguard activated the EAP. My other lifeguards paid attention. My second lifeguard got all the kids out of the water, got an adult to take them away from the lakefront. I had a third lifeguard that went and got the backboard. I had a fourth lifeguard that ran and got the AED, and I had another one that called 911. I mean, they were perfect.
Hmm.
We did a debrief meeting because that was a very stressful situation. We had all these ambulances here, we had all these police here, we had the fire department. I mean, we had 10 rescue vehicles with lights and sirens going. And they hear a kid is hurt and they show up. And so
Hmm.
that was stressful. It was stressful for the campers and it was stressful for the staff. And when we did our debrief meeting, I literally sat there and I said, "Listen, I want you guys to debrief. I want you to tell me how you're feeling, and I want you to tell me if you need time. If you need a brain break. But I also need to tell you that I cannot critique anything you've done. You did
Hmm.
everything perfectly. You did everything exactly in the order it needed to be done, in the time it needed to be done, in the way it needed to be done. It was perfect. It was effortless. And by having that emergency, which again, praise God, worked out. Like he didn't even need to be transported. It was just like the perfect ending for it. But now the trust is even stronger, both with me and my
Sure.
staff, but them within each other. They know that their team is coming to play
Hmm.
their part in whatever emergency happens. And I think that that's such an important lesson. And where else are they going to get a lesson like that?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. Play the part, act it out, review it. I saw this from somebody who was a theater major when I used to do in services, and they would literally write it like a play, and everybody
Mm-hmm.
have their own. And it depressurized it, and then we'd have show night, and show night was the in service. And if
Yeah,
you messed your lot, and so it just made it lighthearted. But to your point, everything you said pieced together to that have that outcome of everybody being able to act their part, if you will, in
yeah,
the moment. But because you insisted, and we talked about this in our show notes too, on your individual and professional level of just high quality training and insisting they do it right.
right.
Now they know it pays off. Now they know they can get the standing ovation. Now they know, to your point, the next time that something happens, we're going to be okay. And I think
Yes.
it's a great combination of real life, like it
Mm-hmm.
happened, but also we're capable of it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
how this whole piece started was not everybody gets that because you come in and teach and you leave, or you're not trained
Yeah,
where you're taught, or you don't know what the team's capable of. And I think you hit so many nails on the head just in
yeah,
that experience, so our listeners can say this is what it takes. It takes
yeah.
a real life moment. It takes real life training. It takes
Mm-hmm.
understanding. And so anyway, I just thought that was beautiful, and I apologize for talking too much about it because it was
Well,
awesome.
And it takes a real life moment, right, to prove it to them that they can do it. Because how many times
Exactly.
have we seen students that go, "Oh my gosh, this is so scary. I have these lives
Mhm.
in my hands." And we tell them as instructors, and I say this until I'm blue in the face, it'll come back to you. That's why we do this over and
Mhm.
over and
It'll
over
click.
again.
It'll click.
Yes, it's going to
Yep.
click. And then that experience was like, you were right, Shannon. It came back to us. Yes, I know. That's
Mhm.
why we practice it
Mhm.
over and over. But having all of that training happen in house, especially by me and my team who I trust, I know what they were taught. I know that they were given the rules. So
In
how many
house.
times have we heard, well, the other lifeguard said, or, well, that's not how I learned it. Well, I know exactly how you learned it. And I can very confidently, if a camper comes to me and I'm running one of the activities, well, the other lifeguard lets me do a backflip. No, they don't. I know that they don't because I'm the one who trained them.
And to that point, and just kind of transition from the so I've thousands of staff, and then I was a boss. Nicole
Mhm.
certified. How did you transition to that? If you'd give the audience kind of an understanding of high, excellent, high quality instruction, but
Mhm.
now high, excellent quality of leadership while still holding that standard of great. How did you bridge that gap? Tell us some of those backgrounds and some of the experience that allowed you to kind of mix those two together.
Yeah, so I started working at the camp in 2018, and I was not the director at that point. But when I was lifeguard certified, um, we had an instructor come in. So he did do it at our facility, and he did great. I mean, he did a really fantastic job. He taught us what we needed. But I noticed even that week, Florida weather is so unpredictable, and we kept having to leave the pool for storms. So then we were transitioning to, inside work and coursework and things like that. And I just kept thinking, like, what would we be doing if we didn't hire our own instructor? And so by the next year, when we were ready to hire summer staff, I went to my boss and I was like, "Hey, what would you think about me becoming an instructor so that I could do this?" And it was 2020 that he finally said, "Yeah, I think it's a good idea. You should be an instructor." Because I really just laid out numbers for him. At that point, it was we could pay this guy this much and then also pay for our certifications, or I'm on salary. So it's no extra money out of our budget. So then we're just paying for the certifications. And he said, "Yeah." And actually, side note, it was 2020 that I became an instructor and I was at the University of Florida. My husband and I where it was the final day of our class when the world shut down for COVID. And they literally,
Oh,
like the people came to the pool and they were like, "You got to shut it down." And our instructor said, "But we literally only have the test left. That's all we
just
have left." And the guy was like, "Don't care. Everybody has to leave. You got to shut it down." So he walked away and she gathered us around. I'm not going to get her in trouble, but so I won't say her name, but
statute of
she,
limitations is
yeah,
up. We're good.
there we go. That's it. She gathered us all around and she was like, "Are you guys comfortable staying?" And we were like, "Yeah." And she was like, "I can't keep you in the pool. So you guys go change your clothes. You go to the bathroom now. We're going to be in the classroom." And we actually acted out as if we were in the water, the in-person test stuff. And then we took our test and she had us like, she would like look out the door and then like let us scurry out. And then she'd look out the door and let us scurry out. So I'll always remember what year I became instructor certified because it was the year the world
It's
shut
and the
down.
day to it's my
The
daughter's
day the
birthday. The
world
day the
shut
world
down.
shut down. My daughter's birthday. It happened on her
Yeah.
birthday that week. Anyway, keep going. Your story's way
Yeah.
better.
So, so anyway, here we are. We have our lifeguard certifications, or our instructor certifications, and I remember being so nervous that first class. But again, even the first class where I was training those summer staff coming in, it proved why we needed to do that. One, we saved a ton of money, but two, we had our afternoon storms that were like, okay, well, we've got to transition. And if I was sending them somewhere else, who knows how long it would have taken. But then we could also do other training because we also have a zip line and a screen swing and
Hmm.
food service and housekeeping. So we have so many other things that we need to train on. We were able to have that flexibility to pivot because
You're right there.
because
You're
I
in
was right
house.
there. And okay, we've got a break in the weather. Let's go into the pool. Let's get into the water. Whereas we wouldn't have that flexibility. Um, and then when I became director of the camp in 2023, that was a little bit after I had met Nicole because she recertified my husband and myself. Um, so when I became director, it was really important for me to partner with, we have a lot of supporting churches and individuals. And so I started, and in the community, and I started thinking, well, what are things that we have here? What are ways that we can partner here? Um, and one of the things as a lifeguard instructor, we did the bridge course. And so we can now teach like CPR, first aid, AED certifications. So we've started doing that for our supporting churches at our cost. So we don't pay for our time or anything, just what the Red Cross charges us. We're able
Hmm.
to CPR certify Sunday school teams, security teams.
Yes.
We've partnered with the coaches at the local high school. I'm doing a CPR class tomorrow for some basketball coaches. So, it's a go-to place to help save
Hmm.
some money, have that community partnership. And then again, I know, especially with my team, I know what's being trained and at what level. I have a saying that my team gets tired of hearing, and it's unset expectations are unmet expectations. And so that's what I'll say. I'll say unset expectations, and they'll say are unmet expectations. And I'll
Manage
say,
what you measure, manage what you manage. Keep
yes,
going. Yep, 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 yep.
yes.
I got it. Yep.
And so to fuel that, that's really what fuels me as a manager, is clearly setting expectations with my staff, with our campers, with our volunteers, with anybody that we come in contact with. And we do that with clear policies, written procedures that we practice over and over and over again, so that they are clearly set expectations so that they will be met. It's also a level of accountability. So if I have said to you, do you understand the expectation that I have set? And you say yes, and then you don't meet it. Well, then there's that objective layer of accountability. Like, hey,
Hmm.
what happened? We set this, you didn't meet it, and it takes
Yep.
away opinion and all of that stuff.
If it's not written down, it didn't happen. I used to tell
That's
myself.
right.
Now in college,
That's
that's
true.
great because I don't want photos of what happened. But in real
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
and like I
Praise
said, well, I
God.
wrote
I
it
lived in the 90s.
right. No social media back in our day.
Right.
But to your point, written. What's the rule? Write it, say it, do it, speak it, repeat it. There's some and right. And so I tell
Hmm.
my staff all the time: if you didn't email me, it's not real. If you didn't put your
Yeah.
initials on it, it's not real. And
Yeah.
but to your point, it's not just the written part. It's taking a fun phrase, right? Unset expectations are unmet, but then getting your staff, even if they roll their eyes, they
Yes.
know what it means, right? My
Yes.
12-year-old
Right.
old son can roll his eyes, but he knows he better make his bed. The fact is,
Right.
they're still doing it, and
Right.
I want to take a moment, and I hope the audience appreciates that. I think sometimes I've done it too. Is we get caught up in they rolled their eyes, or we get caught up in, dude, they did it. They're
Yeah.
getting it.
Right.
They know the rest of your phrase. And I think sometimes we
Yes.
get caught up in some of the emotions or some of the all the riff. But really, I love with the fact that you're honing in on the success. You're honing in on the
Yes.
understanding of the operation. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I think sometimes I've fallen prey to that. It's like, oh, they gave me some back talk. Yeah, they did. But man, they saved that kid. Or man, they cleaned that garbage can or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I just think it's a great approach and I love the phrase.
So
Thanks.
my takeaway on this is when I interview my lifeguards, I always say, "Are you a leader?" And they say yes or they say no. And I say in lifeguard training, when I sometimes hire that person that I was interviewing, I say we're lifeguards are always you're a leader, but sometimes you're not the leader. Sometimes you're the team player because we run through the scenarios, and sometimes you're guard one, and sometimes you're not. So I love this saying because what it reminds me of is just that. And it's proactive leadership. Like this kid the other day, he was running and he did a flip into the pool. So he does it again. And I stop, and I was on the phone with somebody on the pool deck, but I stop and I look at him. And like Wes said, the kid rolled his eyes. This kid didn't roll his eyes. He like refused to make eye contact with me
Right. He knew.
on purpose because he's
Yeah,
like,
one
no,
of
I'm
those.
not going to look at you. And then he
Yeah.
did. I like waited a second. So it's that holding them accountable, but this takes it to another level, to the leadership level, and that's exactly what lifeguarding does. The
Mhm.
lifeguards are just lifeguards, but we're cultivating a culture where they are one day
Right.
going to be leaders. And this is
Yep.
that level of leadership. And it's that nice fine balance of love and respect. And that's why I love lifeguarding.
Yeah, it is. It's
Mhm.
amazing. And that's one of the things that I wrote down that I want to make sure to point out. I've had so many people come back to me. So I've trained and worked with at this point probably close to 100 summer staff. And no matter what they do after they leave camp, I've got people who are missionaries, and I've got people who are youth ministers, and I've got people who are teachers and firefighters and doctors. And no matter what they do next, this knowledge serves them well, but also being able to handle the stress, being able to follow the guidelines, being able to work within the realm of chaos that sometimes
Hmm.
we need to work in. It's lessons that go beyond pulling someone out of the water. It's lessons that take them no matter what walk of life they end up heading
Hmm.
down.
Hmm. And I think you bring up a great statement about not just getting somebody out of the water, right? There's an old saying. I have a lot of, I personally have a lot of friends that are Chicago cops that went to school for being a police officer that never will pull their gun. There's a
Yeah,
lot
right.
of lifeguards that will never pull a water. They might
Correct.
jump in, they
Mhm.
might put a band-aid on. And so I think the fact that you're teaching them beyond that extreme, beyond the life and death, there's so many other things that are going to happen 98% of your life, 98% of your guarding life, that
Mhm.
can have a positive impact. And God forbid you have to get deep in some stuff. Okay, we're there too. But how do you be a teammate? How do you rotate on
Right.
time? Are all
Yes.
things that are going to carry into every level of life, whether you're a sport athlete, whether you're
Yes.
a smart, all the things. And so again, I just, and Nicole does this too, just appreciate your approach. And yeah, we're going to rescue some people, but you also have to function the other 98% of the time you're on shift too.
Yes.
And so
Right.
just a well-rounded, yeah.
And so on that point, on that note too, we hire, of course, a lot of young people. And we all know we were there once. Young people are impervious to everything, right? They're impervious to skin cancer and dehydration and hangriness. They're
As a
impervious to
current
all the
young person, I still
yes.
am, excuse me, but yes, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I mean,
Sorry.
I have my scar right here to prove it, and I show them all of my scars of how I just was convinced as an Irish, very pale person that I would tan ever, and I never did. So part
So many
of those
jokes there. Keep
lessons,
going.
um, part of those lessons that I'm teaching them are it starts way before your shift starts, just like we
Mm-hmm.
talk about all the time. So they have to be well rested. And because of that, I set a curfew for them. And at first they hate it, but they always come to me and say, you know what? I'm glad that we're supposed to be in violet
Oh,
black, or I require them to wear sunscreen. And because I require it, we provide it here at the camp. I require them to wear sun shirts. And because I require it, I provide one here at the camp. Um, I require them to stay hydrated. And so we have water coolers everywhere. I give them 2 electrolyte drinks a day for free. You know, there's a lot of these things that they come back. And again, that's another one of those eye roll things, but they learn because if they come to me and say, hey, my stomach hurts, or hey, I'm tired, or hey, I have a headache,
my
my first
skin
question
burns,
is,
or yeah,
how much water have you had today?
right, right.
And they've noticed that they focus better, that they feel better, that they're able to work better, their attitude is better by taking care of themselves before their shift starts.
Well, and just think about, and these are small nuanced things, and I'm sorry for going in the rabbit hole here, but how many guards in your life have said, I can't guard this spot because I can't wear the shirt because my skin burned, or I can't
Yes.
get in the water because all, and each one of those pieces that break the system, you've tried to put in place to say, you can wear because you wear your sun shirt all day, so it
That's
doesn't
right.
matter. You can't, and all those things that we don't always pay attention to really break this simple line apart. And the
Mhm.
other piece I love you said is, I require, I provide it. I
Yeah.
required, so whether it's HR, whether it's your budget, if anybody listening is here is requiring something, take heed in what Shannon is saying is if I require it, I better provide it. I better find a way to reinforce this so I can hold you accountable. It's not easy, right? There's a lot of
Right.
layers to it, but I think it's very important that people hear that and how it can be done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Take away the excuses is what it boils down
Yeah.
to. And it has really translated monetarily because I don't
Oh,
have people calling out sick. I
Right.
don't have
you don't
people
have
who
19
can't work the shift.
subs.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, it's been a and it's teaching them a good life lesson. So
sure.
it's translated here to helping our business, but it's also helping
Yeah.
them know the things that they need to do later on.
I
Yeah.
just put my I cut our rotation in half this last week of July because it was so hot. I said, "Hey,
Oh, hot. Yeah.
I know what our rotation is, but we're not getting heat exhaustion."
Yeah.
And then we talked about we had one of them. He had heat cramps. I said, "You have heat cramps?" No, I don't. I said, "They are heat cramps." I said, "Did you take the lifeguard class?" Yeah, no, they're not heat cramps. And then so we did in-service training on heat exhaustion. I said it's
Yep.
heat cramp. Well, we did
That
it on
might be just because he's a
dehydration.
guy,
And
by the way.
yeah,
We
I know.
just, yeah.
I
But either
thought
way,
so.
yeah.
I thought so
I own
too.
it. We
I
own
was
it.
like,
Yeah.
look, I was like, we are not called. We're not gonna lose one because it's
Right.
110 degrees outside and the water's 95 because the water
Right.
was 95. So we
Yeah,
doubled
It's
down. Yeah.
bad. Yeah, that's not
my
even
my wife's in the water teaching and says she doesn't get hot. I said I can see the sweat dripping down your
yeah,
face in the pool. And then we
It
had the
was rough.
Canadian wildfires. So I have
Yeah.
my 8-year-old daughter telling people how they can't be outside, but then we're at the lake and they're at the pools and they want to stay out guarding. And I don't care if you wear a mask. I'm not here to. What I'm saying is get a break, get in front of a
yes,
fan, get some fresh
yeah,
air. And then I can see the haze coming over. We're
yeah,
fine. But all the points we're making are giving those specific examples, whether it's
yes.
scars on her chest, whether it's all the things. I said, this is what real life is. And
Mhm.
to your point, Shannon, you said it a couple of times, we'll drive it home. If you just go in and teach and leave, or if you have
Right,
a secondary system, or you're not invested in the team, you're never going to know how to prevent these problems, but also
right.
educate the staff and save all that money. I mean, how many people are begging for subs and anyway,
Yeah.
so but all the good things. Yeah.
Tell us how you got here. How did you um, share your story with us in the 80s?
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
started.
Yeah. So I appreciate my parents so much. I grew up, my parents called my sisters and me fish. My children are fish. So there was a program in the early 80s. I was born in
The
80, so
6'10"
that
fish, that's a big
summer,
fish, by the way.
6'10" is a very big fish. Yeah,
Yeah.
he started off big and just kept going.
Yeah.
So I was born in 80 and so in December of 80. So by like June of 81, my mom had me in a class called Water Babies. So this was, of course,
Oh.
before it was popular. This was before the infant um, rescue stuff. Yeah. And literally, she said what this lifeguard would do is go to the deep end of the pool and she would be swimming right there and drop me in. I would surface, she would get me, and we'd do it again. And I remember watching my sisters do it and being scared to death that here's this,
Older
my
sister, younger sister, older
younger.
sister?
So I'm the
Got it.
oldest of
Okay,
three.
okay, sorry. Good.
And I remember being scared to death for my sisters to be dropped in the water. And my mom would say, but this is how you're such a good swimmer. And every summer, I grew up in Maryland until about 92. And we had a community pool and my mom had us in swim lessons every single summer. And I remember her having conversations with other adults, well, isn't it expensive? Well, yeah, but they know what to do around water. They're safe around water. And then when we moved to Florida in 92, we had a pool in our backyard. And so my mom would say to my dad, like, aren't we glad that we got the girls swim lessons? Aren't we glad that we feel safe here? And so it just was, water was just a part of us. My dad grew up boating his whole life. He actually drives the boat for us now when we have tubing behind the boat at the lake. So it's a family affair. But both of my kids, it was the same thing. I got them those swim lessons. We started very, very, very young so that they were comfortable around the water, but respectful of the water. And they're both
E.
just absolute fish. These kids can swim all day long. They would live life on the water if given the option. My daughter's only 14, so she's not old enough to be a lifeguard yet, but she's been in every one of my classes, so she could
Yeah.
absolutely rescue someone if the need came up. Um, but I think that it's so imperative, especially in a state like Florida where we have water all around us. I think that it is imperative to practice that water safety and to make sure that, it's a fine line between being confident and safe. So have confidence around the water, certainly, but still be respectful of how powerful it is and how dangerous it can be.
Spot on. I was raised in the Midwest, Peoria, Illinois, and we had an in-ground pool. We were not like Peoria or not like Florida. Not everybody had one, but it was one my mother would make us sing, not pretty, so that she knew we were above water. But
Yeah.
two, you could not babysit us if
Mhm.
you did not pass. My mom was a nurse. My dad has his own. If you couldn't pass some sort of life safety challenge, something
Yeah.
to babysit us, not
Yeah.
to do anything else. Now it was a prime job being, but to your point in Florida, it's everywhere.
It's
It was
everywhere.
a,
Yeah.
it was a cool, unique thing, and I'm grateful for it. But what I love about hearing saying is that comfort and respect. There's a nice bridge there, and I'm stealing Nicole's thunder, and I apologize profusely for it. But and then Nicole lives this life. But there's
Yeah.
a beautiful understanding of yes, the floating and the jumping in the deep water, but your mother was there. It wasn't like you threw it in,
Right.
right?
Right.
But and then equal, it was talked about, it was
Yes.
discussed, it was reviewed, it was inherent. And so it wasn't just this one thing we're going to throw you in, and it wasn't just talked about. You really had that nice compliment. And then,
Mhm.
like you said, you also had the emotion when you talked about your siblings and go, is this okay? and your parents were there with you. They
Yep.
talked you through it.
Yep.
And those are the things that I think are missing in some of our conversations with our swim
Mhm.
schools and with our certifications is we might check this box, but we have explained it. We might explain it, but we might not certify it. And so I think you just did a
Yes.
great job, and we're raised in a great environment to say there's got to be respect here, but we can be okay. We can work
Yeah.
through it. And anyway, I just
Yeah.
thought there was a great bridge there. Yeah.
Well, and to like you pointed out, my parents were there. They didn't just trust the lifeguards. They didn't just trust whatever. They made sure, is somebody watching, is somebody paying attention. And for our camp, it's a rule. We don't start any activity, whether it be water activity, the zip line, a field game, serving dinner, unless adult leaders from the group are there. We do not replace the supervision from the groups. And that's a policy that is in writing that we make them initial and sign when they sign a contract with us. And with some of our groups, they get it. They're like, yep, we got this, no problem. Some of our groups are like, that's my nap time. And we
Right.
no, we're there
Yeah,
to
yeah.
keep them safe and to facilitate the activity. We are not there to babysit, and we're not there to supervise. Those are separate jobs, and we have to make that separation for some of our groups.
Yep. Again, going with combining the certification, that's the job part with the training
Mhm.
part and the emotion part. And that's the education, and that's having the in-house, and that's having the expectation of you're not on break. This isn't
Right.
off time. And this is going to pay off. If you can
Yep.
help us do this well, our camp's going to be good. People are going to come back.
Yep.
All the things that go with doing it right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
Well, I thought all of that was amazing. I did not know
That's
how
mostly
much
to
of a
you,
rock
Shannon, by the
star
way.
she was. I mean,
That's to
look,
you. Yeah.
look, I have seen her countless years because we have to. Red Cross
Every
needs you
2 years,
come back
yeah.
every year, and well,
Right.
Yeah.
it feels like every year, but yes, it's every 2 years to read. Well, no, sometimes it's every year when they throw those
Yes.
random ones in there. So sometimes I see her more frequently. But
Uh-huh.
to see what an amazing leader you are, I'm humbled to know that the
Well,
camp is
thanks.
being run like this. I didn't train any of these people to teach this way, Wes. I just trained them in lifeguarding. I didn't know what
And
was happening.
the key word is to me, and I know we said is camp. There's a lot of people I hope that listen to this. I always compare this podcast to Smart Listen. This is a great example because I didn't know our guest was today. So look at me being Sean Hayes and Jason Bateman. But the listening audience, we try to bring people on that have great quality and great discussion. But camp is something we don't talk about every day. Open water, non-clear water, rip currents. And how do we take the great things we do in a pool with a box with water and
Mhm.
bridge that to camp? And how do we take the execution, the documentation, the paperwork, the expectations, and teach people that it can be done in camp? And
Mhm.
no offense to just hand holding water drags, and no offense to all the old school education, but this is real um, uh, applicable tactics.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't need Wi-Fi. You don't need apps.
Right.
You don't, right? And I know a lot of camps
Yeah.
struggle with internet. You just need to really get down into it and say, these are the expectations. This is the training protocol. And it
Mhm.
can be done. And I think,
Mhm.
Shannon, you're a great example of how to really go about it the right way, how to coach the team. And the last point I'll say, too, is they come back. Your employee, everybody gets scared of expectations. Everybody
Yeah.
gets scared of, well, they're going to quit. And if I'm not their mommy, they're going to quit. I think
Mm-mm.
Shannon and a lot of other people are proving the model. You can be strict. You can
Mhm.
be direct.
Mhm.
And here's the way to do it. And don't be afraid of putting in policies. Anyway, I can go on and
Yeah.
on. But
Yeah.
I think you have a great approach. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
I mean, and I have had so many returning staff. I don't have a
yeah.
huge problem staffing my events
Return
now.
on
And
investment,
yeah, it
ROI.
really is. I mean, because good parents, good parents are parents that set expectations and then follow through, right?
Yes.
And so I consider myself to be kind of the camp mom, especially because so many of the people that I employ are like my kids' ages. And do they love being told no? Do they love having to make changes? No, of course not. But they come back and they
They
appreciate it.
come
They
back.
being held to the standards, and I always tell them, like, I can teach you how to run a zip line. I could teach you how to lifeguard. I could teach you CPR. I could teach you all of these things. But if I can teach you not to be offended when someone is clear, clarity is kindness. if I can teach you not to be offended when someone sets clear expectations, if I can teach you to communicate with a team and to
And to listen. Sorry, as I
resolve, to
interrupt, but keep
listen,
going.
yes, no, to listen, to resolve conflict internally, to
Oh,
not go and talk behind their back, to address them to their face. If I can teach you those lessons, that's more important than any actual lesson I've taught you. And that's going to serve you well beyond you being
sound
a
like a
19
football coach
or
in the most
a
complimentary
little
way.
bit. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that it's that camaraderie, but also that education. And again,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people doing great the things you're doing. What I love about what you're saying is really combining your education with the specific location. With it,
Mhm.
because how do I have time to this? How do I make all this step? Well, it's a step-by-step process. It didn't
Right.
happen
That's right.
overnight.
Yeah. No, it didn't. Yeah. We had to build on it. And I love where we're at. I'm really, really proud of where we're
Yeah,
at. I'm proud of how we teach the team. And I'm always looking for ways that we can improve. And one of those ways is, I told you we do the swim test. Well, I had this aha moment. I didn't have the aha moment, actually. One of the deans of our camp said, like, hey, why don't you explain to the kids? Because they're really nervous about the swim test. Why don't you explain to them what this looks like? And so I was like, yeah, why haven't I done that before? And so, we gathered in the meeting area and I just really, it was a group of elementary students and I sat down in front of them. I didn't stand on the stage with a microphone. I sat down in front of them and I said, you guys have seen our pool. This is what it looks like. And that was the smoothest swim test we'd ever done ever. It took like 15 minutes to get 75 campers through. It was it was seamless. And I looked
you
over at my
related
assistant
to them.
director and I said, we're going to do that every week.
Yeah, yeah.
Why haven't we
Indian
done that
style in
before?
a circle, eye to eye. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But again, that's setting the expectation and being clear with the expectation from the get go. So it takes away nerves, it takes away anxiety, and
Mm-hmm.
we're still utilizing that key safety component to keep them safe, but there's not anxiety around it. And yeah, so
That's
I'm
beautiful.
willing, eager to learn every
Yeah.
summer something new.
Unset is unmet. Nicole, we got our
Huh?
we got our tagline for and a few more. But yeah, absolutely. This has just been a pleasure, Shannon. Like I said, I don't know you like Nicole knows you, and
Yeah.
as I steal more major podcast phrases and referrals. But this has just been a pleasure, and I look forward to getting. And again, I encourage everybody to take heed in understanding that this can be done. It's not
Yeah,
impossible
yeah,
to grow, develop, teach, coach, all the things. It just takes some strategy and some hard nosed approach, and I appreciate it. Yeah, this has been
yeah,
awesome.
Well,
yeah.
thank you
Thanks for
Yeah,
having
so
me.
yeah, thank you
yeah.
so much for being on here. I hope that everybody listening was taking notes, especially if you guys were a camp director.
Mhm.
And if this episode moved you or made you rethink how you want to train or support young people, make sure you hit the like and follow button. Make sure you share it with any of your camp family. And remember, we're not just teaching water safety, we're also teaching leadership and we're
Yeah,
making waves. So until next time. We hope you have a safe summer and we wish no drownings. Take care, everybody.
absolutely. Thank you, guys.